Gomez, and Archbishop Gomez is now here to welcome Sister Regina Marie Gorman. Please welcome Archbishop Gomez.
Good morning to everyone. Sister Regina Marie has been a member of the Carmelite Sisters of the Most Sacred Heart of Los Angeles for over 40 years. She currently serves as the Vicar General of her religious order. She's chair of the National Conference of Major Superiors of Women Religious and a much sought-after spiritual speaker. Today, Sister's topic will be, "For Greater Things You Were Born." Please join me in welcoming Sister Regina Marie.
Good morning. None of you came from a Catholic school. Good morning. Good for you. I made, just as we were having breakfast and we're right in the direction of the sun, I made an executive decision. And I am going to give you cliff notes for this talk. I am serious. You're going to get all the essential salient points in half the time, and we will post the full text on our website because we like you alive. When Alan Lund called me 18 months ago about this morning's event, my first response to him was, "Alan, you need a big name speaker." And his response to me was, "We want a homegrown speaker." Truly, it is an honor to be with you. Archbishop Gomez, Cardinal Mahoney, all our brothers and sisters, to be here truly is an honor, and to be a homegrown speaker is an honor. I'll tell you what we're going to do. Besides the Cliff Note approach, you know what we usually do when we hear a talk? We have one or of two responses. One is we're bored silly, we mentally check out, and we check our emails. Right? The second is something touches our heart. Something stirs. Something moves. And do you know what that is? That's God. When something moves in our heart, that is God speaking directly to you. And what do we do with that? Well, in most cases, we have the same response in either scenario, whether we're bored or whether we were touched. We stand up, we applaud, we get to our car, and we go on to the next important thing. But that was God who spoke to you. That was the Almighty One who touched you. So in addition to doing the Cliff Note approach this morning, I'm going to build in 5 minutes of space for you just to receive, digest, identify where God touched you, and hopefully make your response to Him. Because if we can hold on to a nudge of the heart for a few minutes and just hold it, do you know what happens? It starts to get roots in our heart, and the chances of it growing and incorporating into our lives are exponentially higher. And the way we're going to create that little space, the sisters are going to come up and sing. And the singing is not disjoint. The singing is completely together with the message. It just gives you a time of digestion. Is that a good plan? Okay. We have some very good friends of ours that live in Arizona. They come to Los Angeles frequently, and they always visit the sisters. They have 2 high school adopted teenagers, and they have 3 foster care little children. And one particular day when they arrived, Michael, who is 7, but he has the physical stature of a 4-year-old, came running up. And you know how little people, when they're excited, how they run with their whole body? They don't just run with their legs. Well, Michael came running up to the sisters like he was going to explode. And he screams at full lung capacity, "Guess what? Michael, tell us." And he says, "I've been adopted." Michael, that's wonderful. What does adopted mean? It means I'm part of the family forever. Michael, that's great news. It doesn't get any better. Oh, yes, it does. Now, next Sunday, I get to be baptized. Michael, what does baptized mean? It means I get to be part of God's family forever. Changes affect us, but there are some changes that touch us to the core, and they change all of life. For that little boy, his baptism changed everything. Now, he still had the height, he was still underweight, and he was still under height, and he still bore the scars, the painful scars of his instability. But all of a sudden, that little guy knew that he could look to the future with hope. Instinctively, he knew it. He was anchored. He had an interior anchoring. He knew that he belonged to a family, and he knew that that family belonged to him. And he knew that he belonged to God, and that God belonged to him. And his newfound security and confidence was palpable. All of us long for that. All of us long for wholeness, for freedom, for a confidence that comes deep within us. Not just confidence because we got our act together, but confidence because we have a gift within. There's only one thing. There is only one thing in life that will anchor us definitively. We have little moments of reprieve here and there, don't we? There's only one thing that will anchor us definitively, regardless of what's going on outside of us. Let me tell you a story. Some of our friends here have heard this story before. It's true. It happened in the Deep South in the 1950s. A very, very poor family had the necessities. They had love, they had each other, 4 beautiful children, a very cramped little house. They did have electricity and running water. Their food was meager, and they didn't know what new clothes were. Somewhere in her journeys in life, the lady came into possession of a set of crystal goblets. Maybe at a church bazaar, maybe the people she cleaned their houses gave it to her as a thank you gift. But she was so proud of it because that meant in her home there was something of beauty, something of art. a touch of elegance at their otherwise very frugal celebrations. So out came the crystal goblets for Thanksgiving, for Easter. One Christmas, she'd been up late, as mothers usually are, and she prepared meals and celebrated with the children. And at night, when they were washing up, one of the children inadvertently knocked a crystal goblet off the drain board. And when the mother heard it, she turned and she saw her precious goblet shattered in 1,000 pieces over her kitchen floor, and she burst into tears. So she went back to her bedroom, wiped her face, pulled herself together, came back in a few minutes, only to find her husband kneeling on the floor, meticulously picking up the pieces and putting them in a shoebox. She dropped her shoulders and she said, "You're not going to do that. Throw it away." And he said, "Honey, just let me be." And she said, "No, just because I just acted silly, you don't need to be silly. Let me get the broom, we'll throw it away." "Honey, please let me." The nightly routine in that family, after the children finished dinner, they finished their homework, they were off to bed, that's when the father would bring his shoebox out and his little tweezers and his little tube of waterproof glue. And every night, piece by piece, he started to piece the goblet together. And every night, his wife had a new reproach for him. "Honey, it was a child's accident. Come on, just trash it. You are ruining your eyes and you know it will never hold water." One day, the reproach came very close to what the real issue for her resistance was. And she said, "I acted like a child when I burst into tears, and you working so hard on this makes me feel awful. Let's just throw it away." And every time his response was the same. "Honey, please let me." After weeks of this, he had a completed goblet. And when he poured water in it, it held. There were no leaks. Through the years, the children grew up, they left home, they would come back for the holidays, and the first goblet they would always reach for was the one that had been shattered, because the fractured lines all refracted the light, and they created tiny sparkling rainbows, beautiful little scintillations. And the goblet that had been put together, had been reworked, was far more beautiful than the pristine goblets that were intact. There's a meaning in this, because this hits at the heart of our experience in life. We've all encountered brokenness. Oops, I wish I hadn't, in our lives. But it also speaks to a heart of the message of the gospel. It's a law of Christianity more reliable than the law of gravity, that Christ makes all things new. And he doesn't just make all things new theoretically. No. He takes actual messes and very real brokenness and extremely tired and worn out people, and he begins to work in them and through them, and he creates newness. He creates something more beautiful than had we never got into the muck that we find ourselves. There are no exceptions to this law. That's what Christ does. That is who he is. It's a guarantee, it's a promise, and you even get your money back. It happens. But there's only one ingredient, one essential element that's required before it will happen. And that is, we need to let him have the pieces. We need to say yes to him. And he will take it from there. And what he will produce in the mess, in the heartbreak, in the disappointment in your life is beyond what you and I can imagine. Other than it does happen, and it happens on this earth. And eternity is going to be far better, but it begins here on this earth because he came to live among us as one of us. So the work of transformation begins here. And it can be the moral brokenness of an Augustine. It can be the physical suffering of a Teresa of Avila. It can be the mental anguish of a Matt Talbot, who was a hopeless alcoholic when he was 12 years old. And God reworked them, and they have become beautiful scintillations of his presence, of his beauty. Sometimes the brokenness is outside of us. It's in a marriage. It's in a relationship, as in for Rita of Kasha. Or it could be in the brokenness of a government, as in Venerable Mother Luisita. And I want to tell you a real short synopsis of her life, not simply because she's our foundress, and not simply because she's going to be our homegrown saint very soon. She will be the saint of Los Angeles soon. But I share this with you because her life has relevance for every one of us here right now. She was born in 1866 in Mexico as a young girl. She wanted to be a sister, and her father, in very good will, arranged for a marriage for her to a man twice her age. When she was 15, she married a doctor who was 30. She believed this was God's will for her. She truly entered into the marriage. Together, they built a little hospital for the poor. The fact that she could not enter the convent was one of her first broken dreams. Years into the marriage, when they realized that they were not going to be blessed with children, another brokenness in her heart, she and her husband built an orphanage, and they said the children on the street will be ours. She was widowed at the age of 29. Many of you know that woundedness. For 8 years, she continued the administration of the orphanage and the hospital, and when she knew it was strong, she finally followed her heart's desire, and she went off to the convent. And within 11 months, the bishop was coming to talk to her because they were losing this much needed service for the poor without her leadership. Even though she was happy in the cloister, they mutually agreed that she needed to return. Women started coming to help her, to be with her. The government was starting to clamp down, was becoming extremely anti-Catholic. The bishop was worried about their well-being, so he asked her to go join an established community that was already set up. That wasn't her desire, it wasn't her plan, but she went. She was there 3 years, and the penal code of Caius was enacted. If you have not seen For Greater Glory, get the DVD, because it shows you what happens when a government forgets their true purpose and their proper boundaries. So it became a federal offense for a priest to hear confessions, to celebrate Mass, a federal offense for a woman to take vows. Church property became the property of the state. Private schools could be operated only if they agreed to comply with federal regulations. Mother was in this other community. The bishop got nervous. He was losing the hospital again. He was losing the orphanage. So for the fourth time, her life got disrupted. Women came back and started to follow her and help her. That's going to happen all the time. All of us. If we accept God's love in us, if we receive God's love in us, it cannot help but pour through you. Just like the sun right now can't help but make you hot. The love of God radiates through us. It cannot be held. Your children, your neighbors, your co-workers will experience the light and the beautiful little scintillations of God's love if we will let Him do it. If we will let Him do it. How? How do we do this? Do you know, we've been reminded several times today, this is the 10th anniversary of our Catholic prayer breakfasts. And I have a hard question to ask, but since I'm homegrown, I can ask it to my own people. How is Los Angeles different? Over the 10 years, how have we affected our culture? How is it different? We can't fix it all, but we're certainly not alone. The Teresas, the Augustins, the Matt Talbots, the Mother Luisitas surround us. We are surrounded by almost 2,000 people on this plaza alone on a Tuesday morning. And how many Catholics are there in this archdiocese? Do you know that it was 27 years ago today that St. John Paul II spoke to us in the Dodger Stadium? We stand on the shoulders of the greats. And the Teresas and the Augustins and the Mother Luisitas and the Pope John Paul II had their hour. But Christ looks to you and to me as equally as He looked to John Paul and Matt Talbot, Mother Luisita. And I'm not suggesting that you go out and work harder and that you get more involved in more committees and more clubs and more associations, because for the vast majority of you, you're not living hectic lives anymore. You're living frenetic lives. True? Yeah. And when we go so fast, so hard, and so driven, we lose touch with the God who dwells within us. And I have a question. What would happen if we truly believed that God wanted to make us new? That He truly wanted to enter into every aspect of our lives? And we could tap into His infinite flow of love at any time. Just like any of you that are parents, your kids can call you anytime they want, anytime they need you. What happens if we were to, all of us, 1,800, if we were to really make a commitment, like make a schedule, put it in the calendar book, make it real, and we were to take 10 minutes every day just to sit and let God love us. It might take the form of a couple going out for an evening walk together and soaking in God's love like we breathe in the air. It might mean stopping at a local church on the way back from work for 5 or 10 minutes to spend time with the Lord who's there. You'll know what it is. It might mean that you're going to take a coffee break every day alone and drink your cup of coffee with God. He likes coffee. He's from the Middle East. He's fine. But a time when you open yourself up to receive the renewing, anchoring presence of God. All we need to do is to say yes to Him, to let Him have all the pieces. Because truly, 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 it was for greater things that you and I were born.